right, 25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions about the law, maybe you're in a legal circumstance, maybe a traffic accident, maybe something medical in nature, maybe something contractual in nature, maybe you've been arrested. Vanessa is here to answer questions you might have about those circumstances. We do have fun with Vanessa. However, we don't want you to think that our fun means we don't want to hear from you if you have something serious to talk about. We actually all learn from your question and Vanessa's answer whenever you call in with those types of questions. The show is called Legal Lane. Vanessa Lane Jennings is your hostess. I will have her microphone on. It's on right now. And Vanessa is from the Jennings Law Firm here in Ocala. Good morning, Vanessa. How are you?
Good morning, Larry. I'm well. How are you?
I'm okay. It's a busy world for you, isn't it, as an attorney?
It is. Most days are very busy.
There were two big ones this week, and I'm not asking you to comment on them, but one was the Coca-Cola one. Are you familiar with this? Yeah, I think it was Coca-Cola. They're equating it to the tobacco lawsuit.
Okay.
So what is this going to be, the end of soda? I don't know.
That would make a lot of people happy. Not me. I would not be happy.
You like soda?
I might be slightly addicted, yes. The sugar. Sugar is addicting. Which is their whole premise.
But anyway, and then there was the other one about the student loans. Did you see this one? So do you want to comment on either one of them? I don't understand the student loan one. They giving people an opportunity to be forgiven of the money they owe? Is that what that's going to be?
Well, the student loan one's a little tricky. So let's take me, for example. None of this is true, but I'm doing a hypothetical with myself.
Okay. Is it?
I have a law student loan. Let's say my loans are $200,000 for law school, undergrad, and all that combined. I have to pay that back. So once I graduate from while you're in school, they're kind of just in a grace period. They just kind of sit in limbo, and then after graduation, they calculate how much you have to pay back. So let's say they said my bill was supposed to be $1,200 a month for my student loans. And that's what I would have to pay. Well, if I don't have a job that I could afford to pay, let's say I decide I want to be a prosecutor, and I go and work for a public defender, and you're in the state of Florida, they start off at approximately $40,000. So you can't afford to pay. That's almost half your paycheck.
Yeah, right.
So you wouldn't be able to pay it. So what people would do is they would call in and say, look, this is the situation I'm in. What can be done? And what this particular company was doing, allegedly, was...
Leviant or something? Am I saying the name of it right? Leviant?
I thought it was Navient.
Navient, thank you.
So they were putting people in forbearance. So what forbearance is, and their forbearance, and I haven't read everything, like all the details, but I think there was a 6-month forbearance and maybe a year forbearance. I have to look, and don't quote me on either of those numbers, but they were putting people in forbearance. And what that does is that takes whatever money that you would owe during that 6 months, year, 18 months, whatever it was, and tax it on to the end of the loan. That's what they were just automatically doing. They were just putting people in forbearance. And at some points in time, they were putting people in forbearance for years. So nothing's happening. Well, where the lawsuit comes in is they weren't giving people their best option. They were giving people the first option being the best option for the company. So instead of telling people all their options. So for example, one of their other options that they could have given was this income-based method. So let's say that same exact fact patterns that I have. I'm supposed to pay $1,200 a month in student loans, but I decided to become a public servant, so I'm a prosecutor or a law clerk or something that's paying, under $50,000. I can't afford to pay that. So what they could do is they could put you in income-based repayments. And then that way you're at least making payments and the principal's going down and your interest is going down, and it's not all being tacked onto the back of the loan, causing these huge payments. So, because there comes a point in time where you can no longer be in forbearance, and then all of a sudden your loan went from $200,000 to $250,000. And you're like, right. But I was doing a good thing for 5 years. I don't understand.
Yeah.
So, and there are other programs out there, and some other people have argued that. But because there's, like, if you work for a public servant, you can qualify if you do it for 10 years. But what if you don't do it for the full 10 years? So
what does that mean for the future of loan companies, though? Does it change how they do business?
it would make them have to be more transparent and say, look, these are you have 4 options. These are each option, and this is what each option does for you. You qualify for 3 of them. Which one of the 3 do you want? And from what I've read, they weren't giving people those options. They weren't giving people their 3 options. They were just putting people into forbearance.
And does this apply? This must apply to many, many people, not just people in your field. I mean,
Correct. Doctors, lawyers, accountants, anyone who went to undergrad.
Yeah.
So it's just
pretty much everybody.
Well, that's a lot of people, yeah.
That's a lot of people. Wow. Okay. And so if you have a question about this, how come I have a hollow? I'm distracted by the hollow. Does that sound better? Does that sound better?
I turned my mic way down.
It's not.
Or my headphones way down, not my mic.
All right, you turn your headphones down because I'm trying to make you louder.
Okay.
There, maybe that'll work better. I don't know. Sometimes it confuses me here. There it is again. But anyway, so the lawsuit is something. It sounds like you are happy about the lawsuit. You're glad somebody filed this lawsuit.
I'm not dishappy about it. I mean,
it sounds like it sounds like the ultimate goal of an ethical lawsuit, if I can put it that way, is to level the playing field to people who've been unjustly treated, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, and that's what you feel is happening here?
I do.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
I
mean, the way you explained it, that's how it sounds.
I think that people don't know how the system works, and they don't know, and this is not even the legal system. This is just, I don't think people know how most systems work because they're private companies, and how would you even know that?
Yeah.
And how would you know how, unless you were in the banking industry or you worked with loans, you wouldn't know to ask for different things. You wouldn't know that forbearance is potentially the worst option for you. You wouldn't know. So you're like, look, I can't pay it. You're offering me the ability not to pay it. Okay, right. My credit's not getting dinged. Life's not looking bad. And that's not really true because your credit does get dinged when you're in forbearance, but just not as much as you're not paying. So whereas if you're an income reduced repayments, you're not dinged at all. Like there's nothing. So it's one of those things people just don't realize. And I think that people should know what's going on and they should be informed. And
the very fact that education costs so much, will that be affected by this, do you think?
Oh.
Just like pharmaceuticals. It's like, wow, how do people even survive?
Farm is a big business, man.
Yeah,
farm.
Yeah.
Student loans is also a big business, too. I mean, student loans is one of the few creatures that you can't even go get rid of in bankruptcy.
Well, in the confirmation hearings for the Secretary of Education, the lady's name was Betsy DeVos, I think.
Right.
I think.
And something like that, yes.
Okay, now I don't know I'm not trying to get political here, but oh my gosh, I expressed an opinion about this somewhere, I think on Facebook.
And you got reamed?
Yeah.
That happens.
Yeah, because I thought, well, maybe in this case, Al Franken was right. Maybe and this was the part I was talking about, because she didn't seem to understand enough about it to maybe adequately perform the job that she was being asked to perform. And then there was another question asked of her, because she's got so much money, did she ever take a loan? And I don't know if you need to take a loan to be able to understand how it works, but
I think that you don't need to be able to take a loan to understand how the loan process works. However, I think that was targeting a more holistic issue. Not that I agree with this. I just believe that question was potentially targeting a lot of different things. One of which being, do you even know what it's like for the average person to try to go to school? And it's hard in getting out a loan and all the stress that goes with it. Right. I think the better question is, have you ever filled out a FAFSA? That would have been the question. That's the financial form to get a student loan.
Oh, I know. And I went through this when my son was entering into college. This was a while ago already. But I remember all these acronyms. Suddenly I had to understand what they meant and had to talk to people. And I really depended on, the people at the schools to help me out, to help me understand it.
You do. And you have to.
And the parents have to know. It can't just, if you have a student who can do it, I think my son eventually was the one who ultimately did everything. But I was trying to help. And I had files. I probably still have them in my desk of papers after papers of people sending me, here's what you need to know. Okay, let me read it. and think, oh my gosh, my head is spinning from all of that.
Yep.
Wow.
No, it's a lot. That's why I said that's the bigger question. Have you ever filled out one of those? Because it is. It's you realize how tedious it is and how mind-numbing, and that's fine because you have to do it. But it's a process, and if you could ever make that process easier on the person, that's what you need to do. And that's part of her job isn't to make loans easier for the people, but it's to make the process. It's make sure people get the education they're supposed to get.
Well, and if we have a nation, this becomes political here at this point, but if we have a nation where higher education is financially impractical, what's another word that people always use? Prohibitive, cost prohibitive.
Correct.
That means only the rich would get the higher educations. That doesn't even seem to make sense to me.
And not just the haves and have-nots, then that gap just...
Yeah, and that becomes, right, and that even...
It's a larger divide than it already is.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't think that's necessarily political per se, because I think that's just reality.
Well, except for the fact that if you have... if we could turn back the clock and have education as it was, like when I was in the 70s... It was a little more reachable for the average person, I think.
Cost-wise?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was still expensive, but you say, okay, well, here's what I'll do. I'll work a job in the evenings, and that should help out for a little while.
But I think that it was with a lot of things. Like if you looked between people's income and the cost of what actual items were,
right.
I believe that there's our hourly rates. I read it somewhere, and I can't remember what it was. It was supposed to be almost 20-something an hour, or is what we should be making
compared to back then. Is that right?
Just because the cost of living has gone up.
Yeah.
However, the average minimum wage has not gone up. That really does get into political topics.
What are your thoughts on the women's thing? Can we talk about that on the other side of the break, or do you want to stay away from that topic?
It doesn't
like equal pay, that whole thing.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
All right, we'll be right back, and Vanessa is here. If you have a question, it doesn't have to be what we're talking about. Remember, the phone lines are open so you can talk about your circumstances. That's what Vanessa does, and she does it really well, and she's here in Ocala, and she's on the air right now, which means it's free information, which is unheard of in the legal field, because you lawyers have to pay back your student loans.
We do have to pay back our student loans.
All right, we'll be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accidents. On this Friday, some sunshine and cooler than recent days, high 66 to 70. Clear to partly cloudy Friday night and rather chilly, though 38 in a few inland spots, 45 along the coast. A cool day Saturday with intervals of clouds and sun, high 59 to 63. Sunday may start with a bit of rain, otherwise mostly cloudy, high only 59 to 63. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Well, the holiday rush is over, and it's time to return the ties, the knitted sweaters, and those presents that didn't quite make the nice list. And go try something you've always wanted to, like learning to fly. At Ocala Aviation, they make it fun and easy, and you can start by taking one of their discovery flights. For only $99, you get to go up in the airplane with an FAA-certified flight instructor and actually fly the plane yourself. It's a perfect way to see if flying is for you. And once you get that ultimate feeling of freedom, Ocala Aviation can train you to get your pilot's license. Ocala Aviation also offers commercial flight training for those looking to make a career change and enter the world of commercial aviation. Ocala Aviation is conveniently located at the Ocala International Airport. So if you're ready to start your adventure, stop by or give them a call today. 861-7484. That's 861-7484. You'll be glad you did. I know I am. Ocala Aviation. Your adventure starts here. On this episode of What Not to Do, brought to you by
Mike's Got Plumbing. If water runs through it, we do it.
Why is there a mariachi band in... Wait, are you digging up the yard again?
It's not what it looks like.
Oh, really? Because it looks like you're tearing up my yard right over the septic tank.
Okay, so maybe it's a little bit what it looks like. See, what happened was...
Wait, let me guess. The septic is backing up and you thought you were Fix-It Guy again and would take it upon yourself and dig up my yard?
That's Mr. Fix-It Guy.
Uh-huh. What did we say the new rule was?
No eBay when you're not home.
Well, yes, but not that one. If water runs through it...
I know, they do it. But this is septic.
Yes, Mike's Got Plumbing does septic.
I knew that.
Uh-huh. 866-314-4443.
I know. 866-314-4443. Got it.
And what's with the mariachi band?
You didn't say anything about Amazon.
On next week's episode of What Not to Do.
Aw, come on, an elephant?
You have that drip coming down from the corner of the room, but where did it start from?
Bone Dry Roofing can and will fix it right the first time using quality materials and will deal honestly and fairly with you, period. You can find Bone Dry Roofing on their website, bonedryroofingllc.com, and Facebook at Bone Dry Roofing LLC. Do it right before your roof needs a tarp to keep the elements out. Bone Dry Roofing stands behind their work to help make your home safe and secure, plus they have financing available. Remember, if you're not bone dry, then you're all wet.
All right, 9 minutes. Gosh, it goes fast. Vanessa Lane Jennings is in the studio. The show's called Legal Lane. Vanessa is from the law firm of the Jennings Law Firm right here in Ocala, and you are a member of the Florida Association of Women Lawyers. I don't think I've ever read that part of your bio before, on the air anyway. So tell me what you thought about, let's see, how many different issues resonated with you that were being addressed at the Women's March? Any of them at all, or was the women's pay issue a big deal? Robin doesn't feel like it is. Robin feels like women get paid the same amount as men.
They holistically do not. There's arguments on both sides, and I know what the arguments on both sides are. Women holistically get paid at least 20 cents less than a man, I do believe is what the last statistic I read. The statistics change all the time, so there's different ones out there. But a lot of that has to do with women leave the workforce, normally to have children, and then come back in. So they normally leave the workforce in the period of time that men are going and advancing in their career. So they advance at different stages. And whether that's right or whether that's wrong is a totally different argument. But that's one of the arguments for, like on Robin's side, where they are getting equal pay, women just aren't at the same level. The other argument is they're looking at the same exact person, like they're looking at someone who's in the same level, at the same job, doing the same job, and they're still making less money. So it just depends on what you're looking at statistically. So I don't know.
In the case of a married couple, because you deal with divorce a lot, right?
Correct.
In the case of a married couple, okay, let's say the husband is out there working and the wife is the what you normally visualize. She's taking care of the children and doing all the house stuff. He comes home at the end of the day. He's made $100,000 that year. They're married for 10 years, so he's got $1 million he's made, right? Mm-hmm. Now they decide they want a divorce, right? And she hasn't worked a day as far as in salary. But hasn't she contributed to that $100,000 a year salary?
She has.
So therefore, that's why she is due something at the end of that whole marriage if it falls apart.
Well, we're getting into tricky different things because, well, one, how much money do they have in the bank account? Everything is divided 50-50 in the state of Florida. It's a 50-50 state. Theoretically, and this isn't an ideal world, the judge looks at it, takes all your assets, takes all your liabilities, does adding and subtracting, and at the end of it, divides it in half, finds out what your net worth is, and said, theoretically, one person should get half and the other person should get half. That can't necessarily happen because someone's going to get the house, or if they're not going to sell the house, or someone's going to get the car that doesn't have debt and there's a car that has debt. So things have to be equalized. So there's normally like an equalizing payment that it can go back and forth to stabilize it. But where your question comes in is an alimony question. You know, is she going to get alimony? And at 10 years, she's in a gray zone because to get permanent or lifetime alimony, you're in the state of Florida, you're looking at 17 years. But it doesn't mean that she can't get something. But it's not going to be, she's not getting alimony for the rest of her life at a 10-year marriage.
But isn't that part of what contributes to that 20 cents less than a man figure? The fact that she's factually or whatever not making any money, but at the same time she
shouldn't be in the statistics at all. Because if she's not working, then she wouldn't be in the statistics. There's men out there who work and they shouldn't be in the statistics either.
Who work or don't work?
Who don't work, I'm sorry.
Right, okay. Huh. Anything else in the women's thing that you relate to? What else are they arguing about?
They're arguing about a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the biggest one, I think, for a lot of the people in my particular, group is contraceptives and whether or not birth control should be something that is covered, and whether it falls in, and Planned Parenthood falls into a lot of my friends and their concerns, and like our age bracket that we have a concern about.
Okay.
Trying to think of what else is like a really big.
But what was exactly the deal? They don't want the government to pay for the birth control, or they do want the government to pay for it?
They do, because, well, for instance, if you're on any of the government subsidies, you can get Viagra as a man. You You can go out there and they'll cover the cost of your prescription for Viagra.
What is it? Oh, no, never mind.
Right. The answer is I'm not probably going to know whatever question you have. But on the flip side, they don't want to pay. They no longer want to pay for birth control, and they don't want birth control to be covered. Whereas birth control has a lot of benefits.
Meaning abortions or condoms? It's two totally different things.
No. Talking about the pill, like the paying for the pill.
Oh, birth control pill. Okay. Sorry. Okay.
So, I mean, those do a myriad of things. They help with, there's ones that regulate women's systems. Like, it's not just about making sure that there's no children. A lot of the different pills actually have totally different medicines in them that do other things. They help with, people who have, the polycystic,
for the polyps and everything?
Yes.
Yeah.
It keeps those at bay. It keeps cystic acne at bay, and it helps with, otherwise if they get scarring on their face. And it just does a lot of random things, and they want to take that away.
Do you want to take a phone call?
Sure.
Good morning. You're on the air. Thank you for calling.
Yes, good morning. One of the things regarding the birth control issue had to do with people employed by institutions that are funded by the arms of the Roman Catholic Church, which do not endorse birth control in any way, and therefore did not wish to be subjected to having to pay for it. And I think that was a lot of the Sturm and Drang on the birth control issue. And obviously the Roman Catholic Church doesn't wish to pay for abortions at all. Now, the Roman Catholic Church, through Catholic Charities, will work with women to put children up for adoption. And they always have.
Okay.
That's true.
You want to comment on it? Thank you, Jim.
And I'll ring off.
Thank you. I think the other issue that was coming out of that as well is not just the church issue, is take Planned Parenthood, for example, and I'm not trying to segue from one to the other, but they were offering those services. But there's other nonprofit organizations that were doing the same thing. And I use Planned Parenthood because everyone knows it, but there's local ones, there's all different types of ones, and they were receiving government monies. Now, if what Trump's legislation is trying to do, or his administrative orders were trying to do, is if an NGO is receiving any type of government money, so a non-governmental agency is going to be receiving governmental funds, and they performed, they gave birth control bills, or they did abortions, or they did certain things that were nixed by the new administration, they were no longer going to receive funding. In the past, the way that it had worked is that they were going to receive funding, but they couldn't use it for those specific items. So they still got funding, they just couldn't, they had to allocate it to different things.
So they still have the services, the ladies would have to pay for it themselves.
Correct.
That's the difference, okay.
So, in this, it's totally different, where the entire organization is getting $0, zero government funding, because they offer the services.
If you have a need to speak to an attorney, contact Vanessa at her law firm, the Jennings law firm, and your number is?
352-804-0092.
Gosh, it was kind of on the serious side today, Robin.
It
He
was.
should have been in here.
Robin ran away, and that's what happens.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you. Sorry, I looked at my phone for a second.
I said it.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.